Imagine, for a moment, a flickering candlelight casting long shadows across a quiet room in colonial Massachusetts. The scent of ink hangs heavy in the air. A quill scratches furiously across parchment, and the only sound breaking the silence is the distant, rhythmic crash of waves against the shore. It's not a man in a powdered wig, hunched over a Declaration of Independence, but a woman, a mother, a wife, a sister whose words, sharper than any bayonet, are about to ignite a revolution. We often hear the names Washington, Jefferson, Adams. But what if I told you there was a woman, a brilliant, audacious mind, who was not just an observer of history, but an active, searing force in shaping it? A woman whose pen was as mighty as any sword, yet whose name, for far too long, has remained a whisper in the grand pronouncements of liberty. Welcome to Liberty Unfolded, where we don't just recount history, we breathe life into it, peeling back the layers of dusty textbooks to find the beating hearts that propelled America towards freedom. Today, we're pulling up a chair, pouring ourselves a warm drink, and settling in to talk about Mercy Otis Warren, a woman who defied the suffocating expectations of her time, a woman whose intellect was a beacon in an era of burgeoning enlightenment, and whose fierce patriotism burned so brightly it illuminated the very path to revolution. Her story isn't just about dates and battles. It's about courage, conviction, and the enduring power of words to change the world. It's about the quiet acts of rebellion that happen in drawing rooms and parlors, fueled by a searing desire for justice and a belief in the inherent rights of all people, even when those people were largely dismissed. Mercy Otis was born into a world of contradictions, a world that lauded intellectual pursuit for men, but often relegated women to the domestic sphere. Yet, from her earliest days in West Barnstable, Massachusetts, in 1728, it was clear Mercy was no ordinary girl. Her father, James Otis S.R., a prominent attorney and politician, recognized a spark in his daughter, an insatiable curiosity, a quickness of mind that he nurtured despite societal norms. Imagine the scene: young Mercy, perched quietly in a corner, her eyes wide with wonder, listening to discussions of Roman republics, of ancient philosophers debating liberty and tyranny, her mind already buzzing with ideas that would lay dormant for years, only to explode onto the national stage when the moment demanded it. She devoured books, her mind a vibrant tapestry woven with the threads of classical thought, Enlightenment ideals, and the burgeoning spirit of American self-determination. Her intellectual appetite was insatiable, her thirst for knowledge unquenchable, and this early immersion in classical learning would prove to be her most potent weapon in the fight for freedom. It was in these quiet moments of study, surrounded by the wisdom of the ages, that Mercy Otis began to forge the powerful voice that would later challenge an empire. Life in colonial Massachusetts, particularly for a woman of Mercy's social standing, was often defined by domesticity and social graces. Yet, even within these confines, Mercy found ways to cultivate her intellectual life. When she married James Warren in 1754, a fellow patriot and a man who deeply respected her intellect, she found not a diminisher of her ambitions, but an amplifier. Their marriage was a true partnership, built on mutual respect and shared ideals. James was a man of integrity, deeply committed to the cause of liberty, and crucially, he saw Mercy not just as his wife, but as his intellectual equal. He encouraged her writing, shared her political fervor, and provided a safe haven for her blossoming talents. Picture them late into the night, after their children were asleep, hunched over a table, discussing the latest injustices from Parliament, debating the merits of various arguments, their minds alight with shared purpose. This intellectual companionship was rare and invaluable, a fertile ground for Mercy's ideas to take root and flourish. It was within the warm embrace of her marriage that Mercy began to find the confidence to translate her private thoughts into public pronouncements, to transform her quiet contemplation into powerful prose. As the political storm clouds gathered over the colonies, Mercy's home became a veritable salon for the leading figures of the Patriot cause. John Adams, Samuel Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Patrick Henry, these titans of the Revolution frequently gathered in the Warren home, their voices rising and falling with impassioned debate, their minds grappling with the momentous questions of independence. Imagine Mercy not merely serving tea and listening politely, but actively participating in these discussions, her sharp mind cutting through the rhetoric, offering incisive observations, and often providing the very language that would later define the revolutionary struggle. John Adams, in particular, held Mercy in the highest esteem, recognizing her intellectual prowess and her unwavering commitment to the cause. He would often seek her counsel, valuing her keen insights and her unwavering moral compass. She was not just a confidante, she was an equal, a trusted advisor whose judgment he deeply respected. He wrote to her, confessing his own anxieties, seeking her perspective on the complex political landscape, and acknowledging her profound understanding of human nature and political philosophy. These exchanges, preserved in their voluminous correspondence, offer a rare glimpse into the intellectual partnership that underpinned so much of the revolutionary effort. Mercy's letters reveal a mind constantly engaged, a spirit deeply troubled by the encroaching tyranny, and a fierce determination to resist. It was in this crucible of revolutionary fervor that Mercy Otis Warren found her true calling, the power of the pen. In an era when women were largely excluded from public life, when their voices were confined to the private sphere, Mercy dared to step onto the public stage, wielding her words as weapons. She began writing satirical plays and poems, anonymously at first, her sharp wit and biting commentary exposing the absurdity and tyranny of British rule. Her plays, like The Adulator and The Group, were devastatingly effective, using thinly veiled characters to lampoon colonial loyalists and British officials, exposing their corruption and their disregard for American liberties. Imagine the hushed whispers, the furtive exchanges of these pamphlets and plays, passed from hand to hand in taverns and coffee houses, read aloud in secret gatherings, igniting a spark of defiance in the hearts of ordinary colonists. These were not just literary works. They were propaganda, skillfully crafted to sway public opinion, to awaken the dormant spirit of resistance, and to galvanize support for the Patriot cause. Each line was a deliberate stroke, designed to chip away at the edifice of British authority, to expose its hypocrisy, and to awaken the dormant sense of injustice in the hearts of the colonists. Her plays were performed in private homes and sometimes even in public halls, though often with a nervous glance over the shoulder, given the British crackdown on dissent. They resonated with the common person because they spoke a language of shared grievances, of violated rights, and of a simmering resentment that was about to boil over. Her words were not always gentle. They were often cutting, incisive, and unapologetically direct. She understood the power of satire to expose hypocrisy, the ability of drama to stir emotions, and the persuasive force of well-reasoned arguments. She wrote with a passionate conviction, her prose infused with a deep love for liberty and a fierce indignation at injustice. She was a master of rhetoric, weaving together classical allusions, biblical references, and plaints, spoken truths to create a tapestry of persuasion that resonated deeply with her audience. Her writing was a call to action, a clarion call to arms, not with muskets and bayonets, but with the unwavering conviction of free thought and the unyielding spirit of independence. She understood that the battle for hearts and minds was as crucial as any military engagement. By giving voice to the frustrations and aspirations of the colonists, she helped to forge a collective identity, a shared sense of purpose that transcended local loyalties and united them in a common cause against tyranny. Her work was a powerful counter-narrative to the pronouncements of the British Crown, dissecting their claims of authority and exposing the emptiness of their promises. But Mercy Otis Warren's contributions extended far beyond her satirical plays. As the revolution intensified, she moved into more serious political commentary, writing influential pamphlets and essays that dissected the issues of the day with remarkable clarity and foresight. She was a keen observer of human nature, understanding the subtle interplay of power, ambition, and principle that drove the actions of men. Her understanding of Republican ideals, gleaned from years of study, allowed her to articulate the core principles of liberty and self-governance with precision and passion. She argued eloquently for the natural rights of man, for the right of the people to resist tyranny, and for the necessity of a government accountable to its citizens. Her words were a powerful counterpoint to the Loyalist narratives, providing intellectual ammunition for the Patriot cause and shaping the very discourse of the Revolution. She corresponded with leaders across the colonies, sharing her insights and encouraging their efforts. Her influence was not always visible, but it was profoundly felt, a steady current of intellectual support flowing beneath the surface of the grand revolutionary narrative. She possessed a remarkable ability to distill complex political theories into accessible language, making the abstract concepts of liberty and sovereignty tangible and relatable for a broader audience. Imagine the courage it took for a woman in the 18th century to engage in such public discourse, to put her thoughts, her name, and her reputation on the line for a cause that was far from certain. There were no social media platforms to hide behind, no anonymous online forums. Her words were printed, circulated, and read by people who knew who she was, or at least could easily deduce it. She faced the scrutiny and potential scorn of a society that largely believed a woman's place was in the home, not in the public square. Yet she persevered, driven by an unshakable belief in the righteousness of her cause and an unwavering commitment to the principles of liberty. This was not just an intellectual exercise for Mercy. It was a deeply personal struggle, fueled by her love for her country, her family, and the future she envisioned for them. She understood the risks, not just to her social standing, but to her very safety. Loyalists were not above intimidation, and public dissent could have severe consequences. Yet, the urgency of the moment, the palpable threat to the freedoms she cherished, propelled her forward. She defied the silent expectations of womanhood, shattering the invisible chains that sought to bind female intellect and creativity. Her act of writing was, in itself, an act of rebellion, a quiet but profound assertion of her own agency and her right to participate in the shaping of her world. One of the most remarkable aspects of Mercy Otis Warren's legacy is her monumental work, History of the Rise, Progress, and Termination of the American Revolution, published in 1805. This 3-volume masterpiece was not merely a chronicle of events. It was a deeply insightful, meticulously researched, and often unflinching analysis of the Revolutionary era. It was one of the first comprehensive histories of the American Revolution, written by someone who had lived through it, who had been intimately connected to its key figures, and who possessed a profound understanding of its underlying causes and consequences. Imagine the sheer undertaking, years of meticulous research, poring over letters, diaries, and official documents, all while navigating the complexities of her own life and the evolving landscape of the newly formed nation. She relied not only on official records but also on her extensive network of acquaintances among the leading figures of the Revolution, gathering first-hand accounts and personal recollections that enriched her narrative with a level of intimacy and detail rarely found in other historical works of the period. This was not a detached academic exercise, but a deeply personal endeavor, born from her profound engagement with the events she described. Her history was groundbreaking in its scope and its perspective. She didn't shy away from critiquing even the heroes of the Revolution, offering nuanced portraits of figures like John Adams and George Washington. acknowledging their strengths but also highlighting their flaws. She believed that true history required an honest appraisal, a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, and a commitment to intellectual integrity. This critical approach, particularly towards those she held in high regard, sometimes led to friction, most notably with John Adams, who took offense at certain passages. He felt she had mischaracterized his role and motives, leading to a bitter, albeit temporary, estrangement between the two old friends. This highly public disagreement, though painful for both, underscored Mercy's unwavering commitment to her craft, her refusal to allow personal allegiances to compromise her historical judgment. She understood that the past, in all its complexity, held vital lessons for the future, and that an unvarnished account was essential for the nascent republic to truly understand its own origins. She believed that future generations needed to see the full picture, the triumphs and the follies, the nobility and the human weakness, in order to truly appreciate the fragility and preciousness of liberty. Her work was a testament to the idea that history is not a static monument, but a living, breathing narrative, constantly being reevaluated and reunderstood. Her history also provided a unique female perspective on the Revolution, a viewpoint often absent from the dominant narratives of the time. She explored the impact of the war on women, on families, and on the social fabric of the nation. She recognized that the Revolution was not just fought on battlefields, but in homes, in hearts, and in the quiet resolve of ordinary people. She understood that while men were away fighting, women were maintaining households, running businesses, raising children, and often facing immense hardship and uncertainty. Her work acknowledged the crucial, though often unheralded, contributions of women to the revolutionary effort, portraying them not as passive observers, but as active participants in the struggle for survival and independence. She chronicled the anxieties of wives whose husbands were at war, the sacrifices of mothers who sent their sons to fight, and the resilience of communities grappling with the disruptions of conflict. Her perspective humanized the grand narrative, reminding readers that behind the sweeping pronouncements and military maneuvers were countless individual lives profoundly impacted by the unfolding drama. Her work stands as a testament to the fact that history is not solely the domain of great men and grand pronouncements, but also the product of countless individual acts of courage, sacrifice, and conviction, often performed far from the public gaze. Mercy Otis Warren's life, particularly her later years, was not without its challenges. The new nation, forged in the crucible of revolution, faced immense internal divisions. She witnessed the rise of political factions, the debates over the Constitution, and the shifting allegiances that threatened to unravel the very fabric of the republic she had fought so hard to create. Her commitment to Republican ideals remained unwavering, and she continued to use her pen to advocate for what she believed was right, even when her views diverged from those of her former allies. She became a vocal anti-federalist, fearing that the proposed Constitution granted too much power to the federal government and threatened the liberties for which so much had been sacrificed. She worried about the absence of a Bill of Rights, the potential for a powerful executive to become tyrannical, and the erosion of local self-governance. This stance, though principled, put her at odds with many who had once championed her, demonstrating her unwavering intellectual independence and her refusal to compromise her convictions for political expediency. She saw herself not as an obstructionist, but as a guardian of the revolutionary principles, a voice of caution against the siren song of centralized power. Her essays during this period, often published under pseudonyms, were sharp and persuasive, echoing the concerns of many who feared a return to the very kind of distant authority they had just fought to overthrow. And here, in this moment of political turbulence, we find a timeless truth woven into the fabric of Mercy's story. The struggle for freedom is never truly over. It's not a destination, but a continuous journey, fraught with new challenges and new threats to liberty. The human desire for power, the inherent tensions between individual rights and collective security, the ever-present temptation to sacrifice principles for expediency, these are not just historical footnotes. They are perennial human struggles that echo through the centuries. Mercy Otis Warren, through her life and her work, reminds us that the fight for a truly free and just society requires constant vigilance, an unwavering commitment to truth, and the courage to speak truth to power, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's unpopular. Her story is a testament to the idea that true patriotism isn't blind allegiance, but a critical, discerning love for one's country, a love that demands accountability and strives for a more perfect union. She understood that even after the enemy abroad was vanquished, the internal struggle for the soul of the nation would continue, requiring the same vigilance and courage as the fight for independence itself. She was a living embodiment of the revolutionary spirit, perpetually questioning, perpetually advocating, perpetually striving for a more perfect realization of the ideals upon which the nation was founded. Mercy Otis Warren died in 1814 at the venerable age of 86, having lived through an epochal period of American history. She witnessed the birth of a nation, participated actively in its formation, and then observed its earliest steps with a critical and loving eye. Her intellectual acuity remained sharp until the end, her mind continuing to grapple with the profound questions of governance and human liberty. Her passing marked the end of an era, a link to the very origins of the American experiment. Yet, her legacy, though largely unacknowledged for many years, continued to resonate. She left behind a body of work that, for too long, remained in the shadows, but her contributions were immense and undeniable. She was a pioneer, a woman who broke through societal barriers to become a powerful voice in a male-dominated world. Her ability to operate within and strategically push against the confines of her gender speaks volumes about her resilience and her determination. She was a patriot whose intellectual firepower and unwavering commitment to liberty helped shape the course of a nation. Her words were not mere rhetoric, they were infused with a genuine love for her country and a profound belief in its potential. She was a historian whose meticulous research and insightful analysis provided one of the earliest and most comprehensive accounts of the American Revolution. A narrative woven not just from facts, but from the very lived experience of the era. Her history became a foundational text for future generations of scholars and citizens alike, offering a unique window into the revolutionary mind. Her words inspired, informed, and challenged, leaving an indelible mark on the intellectual and political landscape of early America, even if that mark was not immediately recognized by all. Her story reminds us that history is not just about the celebrated figures on pedestals. It's also about the unsung heroes, the quiet revolutionaries, the voices that whispered, then spoke, then roared for justice and freedom. It reminds us that the fight for liberty is a collective endeavor, powered by diverse voices and perspectives, each contributing their unique strengths to the grand tapestry of human progress. It underscores the profound truth that every individual, regardless of their social standing or perceived limitations, possesses the potential to effect monumental change, to leave an enduring mark on the world. It urges us to look beyond the easily visible, to seek out the hidden currents and the untold stories that truly shape the flow of human events. And it reminds us that the pen in the right hands can indeed be mightier than the sword, capable of shaping minds, inspiring movements, and ultimately, forging the very destiny of nations. For Mercy Otis Warren, her quill was not merely an instrument for recording thoughts. It was a weapon of liberation, a tool for empowerment, and a beacon of intellectual light. So, as we close this chapter on Mercy Otis Warren, let her story linger in your mind. Let it be a reminder that courage comes in many forms, that intelligence knows no gender, and that the fight for what is right is a timeless human endeavor. What voice are you holding back? What truth are you waiting to unleash? Because in a world that constantly seeks to silence dissenting voices, the legacy of Mercy Otis Warren whispers across the centuries, a powerful question for us all. If one woman, armed with nothing but a pen and an unyielding spirit, could help ignite a revolution, what incredible changes might your voice bring about today? The revolution, in its truest sense, is never over. It continues moment by moment through the courage of individuals who dare to speak, to write, to think, and to dream of a more just and free world. It lives in every act of defiance against injustice, every word spoken for truth, every effort to expand the circle of liberty. Mercy Otis Warren, a woman whose wisdom shone like a quiet star in the revolutionary firmament, calls us to action not with a roar, but with the gentle, persistent scratch of a quill on parchment, reminding us that our own pens, in whatever form they take, hold the power to shape the future. Go forth and write your own chapter in the unfolding story of liberty. This is Liberty Unfolded. Thanks for listening. And if this story moved you, share it, because stories like Mercy's, they deserve to be remembered. Not just in history books, but in hearts.